X is a platform for free speech. If Keir Starmer bans it, that makes him a dictator, Patrick Christys says. Keir Starmer might be about to ban X from Britain, and Patrick Christys just came out swinging, saying if he does it, that makes him a dictator. Strong words, but when you look at what X actually does, how it holds politicians accountable, and why Starmer's relationship with Elon Musk has deteriorated into open warfare, you start to wonder if Christys might have a point. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, and today we're diving into why the Prime Minister's threat to ban X isn't really about AI bikini images, it's about controlling information, silencing critics, and making sure those pesky community notes stop fact-checking his tweets into oblivion. Buckle up, because this is about to get spicy. I'm bringing you multiple videos today because British politics is serving up more drama than a reality TV marathon, and we're here to break it all down. So let's examine why X has become Starmer's worst nightmare, what those community notes have been revealing about government claims, and whether threatening to ban a social media platform because it exposes your lies is the kind of thing democracies do or the kind of thing dictatorships do. Right, so Starmer said he's keeping all options on the table regarding X, which includes potentially banning it. The stated reason is AI-generated images of women and girls in bikinis created by Grok, which is genuinely problematic, and we're not dismissing that. But Christys makes a brilliant point by demonstrating exactly what Grok does. He shows his wedding photo, then what Grok generated when asked to put him in a bikini. It's played for laughs because it's him, but the serious undertone is clear. This technology can be abused to create non-consensual images of women and girls, and that's wrong. But here's where it gets interesting. Christys doesn't think that's really what this is about for Starmer, and honestly, neither do most people paying attention. Because if it was genuinely about AI-generated imagery, why isn't the government going after every platform and tool that can do this? Why the laser focus on X specifically? Could it possibly be related to the fact that Elon Musk has absolutely eviscerated Starmer publicly, calling him two-tier Keir, accusing him of being a dictator, calling for his resignation, and saying he was complicit in the rape of Britain regarding grooming gang scandals? That's not light criticism, that's full-on warfare. Musk has used his massive platform to highlight the Pakistani grooming gang scandal, to push for inquiries, to expose what he sees as government failures and cover-ups. He said Starmer should be in prison. These aren't diplomatic disagreements, these are scorched earth attacks from one of the world's most prominent tech figures. And now, suddenly, the government's talking about banning his platform over an issue that exists on multiple platforms, but they're only targeting this one. The cynicism is so transparent you could use it as a window. Starmer's response has been to accuse critics of spreading lies and misinformation, claiming he tackled prosecutions head-on when he was director of public prosecutions. But here's the problem with that defense. X is where his claims get fact-checked in real time. Community notes are absolutely brutal because they appear directly on politicians' tweets, providing context and corrections that everyone can see. You can't spin your way out of a community note because it's right there, attached to your claim, showing everyone exactly where you're being misleading. Let's look at some recent examples because they're absolutely damning. Starmer claimed rail fares have been frozen. Community note appears pointing out this doesn't actually apply to all tickets. So the claim sounds great, but the reality is more limited. That's classic political spin. Make a broad claim that sounds impressive but is technically misleading. Without X and community notes, that claim just sits there and people believe it. With them, everyone sees the full picture. Starmer boasted about bringing energy bills down. Community note appears explaining that even when they do come down, they'll still be higher than when Labour came to power. So he's taking credit for reducing something his government allowed to increase in the first place. That's like setting something on fire, putting the fire out halfway, and expecting applause. The community note makes sure people understand the full context. Bus fares. Here's a great one. Starmer proudly announced they've capped them at £3. Community note appears showing that his party raised them by 50% and then capped them at the higher rate. So it's not generosity, it's damage control after they made things worse. Without that context, it looks like Labour is helping. With it, you see they created the problem and are now claiming credit for partially fixing it.
Then there's the Allah al-Eftah situation. Starmer said he was delighted this Egyptian activist was coming to Britain. X users found his profile and discovered tweets about killing white people, killing police officers, expressing hatred of Jews. That's not exactly the kind of person you want to be publicly delighted about welcoming, and without X users doing that research and sharing it, maybe we wouldn't have found out until newspapers reported it days later, if at all. X enabled real-time fact-checking and information sharing that held the government accountable immediately. This is why X is Starmer's worst nightmare. It's a platform where his claims get scrutinized instantly, where community notes provide context he'd rather people not have, where ordinary users can research and expose things that might otherwise stay buried. Traditional media has editorial processes, deadlines, relationships with government to consider. X is immediate, democratized, and much harder to control. For a government that's built on spin and carefully managed messaging, that's terrifying. Chrystis points out that Musk has said he'll limit the undress feature to paid subscribers, which means anyone abusing it would have provided their details and could be identified and prosecuted. That's actually a reasonable response to the problem. It doesn't eliminate the feature entirely, but it creates accountability through identification. But Starmer said it's insulting and doesn't go far enough. Why? Because if X implements reasonable safeguards, the excuse for banning it evaporates. And maybe Starmer doesn't actually want reasonable solutions, maybe he wants the platform gone. Now, Trump's allies are getting involved, with threats of sanctions against Starmer personally if he bans X. That's America directly warning Britain not to do this, which should tell you how serious the potential diplomatic fallout is. Musk himself has said Starmer will do anything for censorship, and looking at the pattern of behavior, it's hard to argue with that assessment. The government's proposed online safety regulations, the threats against X, the general hostility towards platforms they can't control, it all points to a government that would very much like to manage what information people can access. And then there's the leaked WhatsApp messages showing Labour MPs urging the government to delete its official accounts on X. That's party members actively pushing to abandon a platform used by millions of British people because they don't like the scrutiny it brings. Ed Miliband at Labour conference literally said, "Elon Musk, get the hell out of our politics and our country." Not, "we disagree with your criticisms," not, "let's have a productive dialogue," but "get out of our country." That's not the language of people confident in their positions. That's the language of people who are furious they can't control the narrative. Chrystis makes excellent points about what we wouldn't know without X. The situation in Iran last night, X users were sharing information in real time. The Ethiopian sex offender who was accidentally freed from prison near the Bell Hotel, X users raised the alarm about that. These are genuinely important pieces of information that spread through X before traditional media picked them up. The platform has real value beyond just being a place where politicians get fact-checked, though that alone would justify its existence. This is what makes the comparison to dictatorships relevant. In authoritarian countries, governments control information flow. They decide what people can know, when they can know it, and how it's framed. They shut down platforms that allow free information sharing. They punish people who spread information the government doesn't like. Now, Britain's not there. We're nowhere near full authoritarianism, but when a government starts threatening to ban social media platforms because those platforms fact-check their claims and expose their failures, you're heading in a concerning direction. The stated justification of protecting women and girls from AI-generated imagery would be more convincing if the response was proportionate and consistent. Create legislation criminalizing non-consensual AI imagery. Require platforms to implement safeguards. Hold individuals who create and distribute such content accountable. These would be reasonable responses. Threatening to ban an entire platform used by millions for all sorts of legitimate purposes, including holding government accountable, is wildly disproportionate and conveniently serves political goals that have nothing to do with the stated concern. What's particularly telling is the timing and the targets. X gets threatened with bans. Musk gets told to get out of our country. Community notes that fact-check government claims are treated as hostile acts rather than useful corrections. The government's not celebrating transparency and accountability, they're fighting against it. That should worry everyone, regardless of political affiliation, because today it's Labour fighting X, tomorrow it could be any government fighting any platform that exposes inconvenient truths. The free speech argument is absolutely central here. X positions itself as a free speech platform, which doesn't mean anything goes, but does mean they're less aggressive about content moderation than platforms like Facebook or pre-Musk Twitter. For people who value being able to speak freely, criticize government, share information without heavy-handed moderation, that's valuable. For governments that want to manage narratives and avoid scrutiny, that's threatening. Christys is right that if Starmer bans X, he's prioritizing control over freedom, and that is fundamentally a dictatorial impulse. Maybe not full dictatorship, maybe not Stalin or Mao, but the instinct is the same. Silence critics, control information, protect power. The irony is that actually banning X would confirm everything Musk and other critics have said about Starmer being authoritarian and unable to handle scrutiny. It would be self-defeating, proving the critics right while generating massive backlash. But when you're at -59 approval rating and hemorrhaging voters, maybe you figure